You think the reason you feel empty is because you're not trying hard enough. You've been taught that motivation is something you generate through willpower, that fulfillment comes from achievement, that if you just pushed a little harder, organized your time better, set clearer goals, you'd finally feel alive again. That sounds logical. It makes sense. Everyone believes it. But that's exactly the problem. Because what you're experiencing right now, this quiet collapse, this sense that something fundamental is missing, even when everything looks fine from the outside, isn't happening because you're weak. It's happening because you're living in direct violation of how human beings are actually built. And the worst part? You don't even know you're doing it. Before we go deeper, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. This kind of content isn't common. Most channels won't tell you that your entire approach to life might be structurally backwards, and your support helps this reach people who need to hear it. Now, let's continue. The modern world operates on a very specific promise. It tells you that if you work hard enough, if you optimize your routine, if you develop the right habits, if you push through resistance, you will arrive at a place of peace, a place of satisfaction, a place where effort finally pays off, and you get to rest in the life you built. This promise is everywhere, in self-help books, in productivity podcasts, in the advice your parents gave you, in the way successful people describe their journeys. It's the foundation of everything we're taught about how to live. And if that promise were true, if that model actually worked, then the people who followed it most faithfully would be the most fulfilled. The hardest workers would be the happiest. The most disciplined would feel the most alive. People who achieve their goals would stop feeling empty. But that's not what happens. What actually happens is this. People work for years. They build careers. They check off milestones. They do everything right. And then one day, they wake up and realize they feel nothing. Not sadness exactly. Not depression in the clinical sense. Just a vast, quiet absence. A sense that they're going through motions that no longer mean anything. And when that happens, they assume the problem is them. They think they need better goals, more gratitude, a mindset shift. They read another book. They try another framework. They push harder. But the emptiness doesn't go away because it was never about effort. Let me ask you something. And I want you to actually think about this. Not just hear it. Think about the last time you felt truly at ease. Not distracted, not numb, not entertained, but genuinely at peace with where you were and who you were in that moment. How long ago was that? Now think about how much you've accomplished since then. How many things you've checked off. How much you've improved, at least on paper. Notice something? The accomplishments went up, but the ease didn't come back. That's not a coincidence, that's a clue. Because what's actually happening, what almost no one talks about, is that you've been trying to solve a structural problem with a motivational solution. You've been treating a system failure like it's a personal failure, and that's why nothing works. Here's the inversion. And this is the part that changes everything if you actually let it in. You don't feel empty because you lack discipline. You feel empty because you're trying to live at the wrong level of need. Most people hear that and don't understand it. So let me say it differently. Human beings don't operate on willpower alone. We're not machines that run on effort. We're layered. We're structured. And we only function well when those layers are in the right order. Abraham Maslow spent his life studying this, not as a theory, as an observed reality. He watched what actually happened to people when their needs were out of sequence. And what he found wasn't complicated, it was just deeply structurally true. You can't feel purpose if you don't feel safe. You can't feel connected if you don't feel seen. You can't self-actualize if your foundation is missing. And here's the part no one wants to hear. The modern world has trained you to ignore your foundation entirely. It's taught you to skip straight to the top, to focus on meaning, on legacy, on optimization, on impact, while the bottom is falling apart. You're trying to build a life of purpose while your nervous system is in survival mode. You're trying to feel fulfilled while you don't even feel secure. And then you wonder why nothing sticks, why every achievement feels hollow, why you can't seem to care about things that should matter. It's not because you're broken, it's because you're architecturally upside down. If this is making sense, comment below and let me know where you're watching from. Sometimes just knowing other people are going through the same structural collapse makes it easier to face. Now let's go deeper, because this isn't just a personal issue. This is happening to entire generations at once. Look around. Look at the people in your life who seem successful, the ones who did everything right. Good jobs, nice homes, stable relationships at least from the outside. Now look closer. How many of them seem genuinely at peace? How many of them seem like they're living from a place of wholeness instead of performance? Not many. And that's not because they're uniquely damaged, it's because the entire system is structured to produce this outcome. We've built a civilization that prioritizes achievement over stability, productivity over presence, status over safety. We reward people for climbing, but we never ask if the ladder is on solid ground. And when people start to crack under that pressure, when they start to feel the exhaustion, the numbness, the quiet desperation, we don't tell them the truth. We don't say, "You're trying to live in a way that no human nervous system can sustain." We say, "You need to be more resilient." We say, "You need better boundaries." We say, "You need to work on your mindset." And so people try. They add another practice, another routine, another layer of effort on top of an already collapsing foundation. But you can't think your way out of a structural problem. You can't motivate your way past a missing need. And this is where it gets uncomfortable. Because if what I'm saying is true, then most of the advice you've followed, most of the effort you've put in, most of the self-improvement you've done has been aimed at the wrong target. You've been trying to fix your mindset when the problem was your foundation. You've been trying to find your purpose when you didn't even have safety. You've been trying to feel whole while living in a constant state of threat. And your mind, your very intelligent, very well-meaning mind, has been telling you that if you just tried harder, it would work. But it won't. Because the human system doesn't work that way. Here's what Maslow understood that most people miss. The hierarchy isn't a suggestion. It's not a nice idea. It's a map of how we're actually built. When your foundational needs aren't met, your brain doesn't let you focus on higher things. It doesn't matter how much you want to. It doesn't matter how disciplined you are. Your system overrides you. Because survival comes first. Always. And if you're living in a state where you don't feel physically safe or financially stable or emotionally seen, your brain will not allow you to rest in meaning. It will keep you scanning for threat. It will keep you anxious. It will keep you numb. Not because something is wrong with you, but because something is missing under you. And no amount of journaling, goal setting, or positive thinking will fix that. You have to go back down. You have to rebuild the base. You have to stop trying to live at the top of a pyramid that has no bottom. That's the inversion. That's the thing that contradicts everything you've been taught. And that's why it feels so wrong to hear. Because we've been conditioned to believe that going backward is failure. That needing basic things, stability, rest, safety, is weakness. That if you're not constantly growing, you're falling behind. But that belief is what's killing you. Not literally, but emotionally, spiritually. In all the ways that make life feel like life instead of just existence. And the tragedy is that you've been blaming yourself for it. You've been thinking you're the problem, that you're not strong enough, not focused enough, not evolved enough. But you're not the problem. The model is the problem. The expectation that you can live without a foundation is the problem. The belief that you can skip the bottom and still feel whole at the top is the problem. And once you see that, once you really see it, everything changes. Not because you suddenly feel better, but because you finally understand why you feel the way you do. You're not lazy. You're structurally unsupported. You're not unmotivated. You're trying to run on an empty foundation. You're not broken. You're just human. And human beings don't work the way the modern world pretends they do. Now here's the part that most people resist. You don't like this idea. You don't want it to be true. Because if it's true, it means you have to stop. It means you have to go backwards. It means you have to admit that the life you've been building might be on the wrong foundation entirely. And that feels like failure, but it's not failure, it's clarity. It's the difference between spending another 10 years pushing in the wrong direction and finally, building something that can actually hold you. Maslow said something that most people never hear. He said that self-actualization, the thing everyone wants, the peak, the purpose, the meaning, is only possible when all the lower needs are met. Not kind of met, not partially met, fully met. And in a world that tells you to hustle through exhaustion, to ignore your body, to push past your limits, to optimize every moment, that's almost impossible. So people spend their whole lives reaching for something they're structurally prevented from ever touching. And they think it's their fault, but it's not. It's a design flaw in the life they were taught to live. And the moment you stop blaming yourself and start seeing the structure, everything shifts. You stop thinking something is wrong with you. You start seeing that something is wrong with the order, and that's when real change becomes possible. Not change that comes from effort, but change that comes from alignment, not change that requires you to be stronger But change that allows you to finally be supported. Because here's the truth that no one wants to say out loud. You're tired because you're carrying a life that was never designed to be carried. You're numb because you're living in a way that doesn't allow you to feel. You're empty because you've been building at the wrong level for so long that you forgot what the right level even feels like. And the answer isn't more effort. The answer is different architecture. The answer is going back to the bottom and asking a question almost no one asks anymore. Do I actually feel safe? Not safe in theory, not safe compared to other people, but safe in my body, safe in my life, safe enough to stop performing and just exist. And if the answer is no, then everything else you're trying to build is unstable. Not because you're doing it wrong, but because you're doing it on ground that can't hold it. That's what Maslow saw. That's what the modern world ignores. And that's what's breaking people in silence one by one while they keep pretending everything is fine. You've hit the invisible limit, not because you reached your potential, but because you've been trying to live beyond your foundation, and the only way forward is to stop climbing and start building where it actually matters. At the bottom, where no one is watching, where it's not impressive, where it doesn't look like progress, but where everything real begins. Let's talk about what that actually means in practice. Because this isn't abstract philosophy. This is about your actual life, your actual body, your actual nervous system that's been running on fumes while you've been told to focus on your vision board. Maslow identified 5 core levels, 5 layers that have to be in place in order for a human being to function at full capacity. The first level is physiological: food, water, sleep, shelter, the absolute basics of being alive. And you might think, well, I have those, I'm not starving. I have a roof over my head. But look closer. When was the last time you slept enough? Not survived on 6 hours. Actually rested. When was the last time you ate without distraction, without guilt, without measuring, without your phone in your hand? When was the last time your body felt safe enough to completely relax? If you can't remember, then this level isn't met. You're living in chronic deficit at the most basic layer of being human, and everything you build on top of that is unstable. The second level is safety. Physical safety, financial security, health, stability. And again, you might think you have this. You're not in immediate danger. You have a job. But do you feel secure, or do you wake up at 3 in the morning thinking about money, about what happens if you lose your job, about whether you can afford to get sick? Do you feel like the ground under you is solid, or does it feel like you're one bad month away from collapse? Because if your nervous system doesn't believe you're safe, it doesn't matter what your bank account says. Your brain will not let you rest. It will not let you focus on higher things. It will keep you in a state of constant vigilance, and you'll mistake that vigilance for anxiety, for overthinking, for a personal flaw. But it's not. It's a system response to unmet need. The third level is belonging, connection, love, being seen and accepted for who you actually are, not who you perform as, not the version of you that's optimized for success, but the real you, the tired you, the uncertain you, the you that doesn't have it all figured out. Do you have that? Do you have people in your life who see you completely and don't need you to be different? Or are you surrounded by relationships that only work when you're performing, when you're helpful, when you're strong? Because if you're only loved conditionally, if you're only accepted when you're useful, then this need isn't met either, and you'll feel lonely even when you're surrounded by people. You'll feel unseen even when everyone is watching. And you'll think something is wrong with you for feeling that way. But again, it's not you. It's the structure. The fourth level is esteem, respect, recognition, the feeling that you matter, that your existence has value, that you're not just surviving, but contributing something real. And this is where most people spend all their energy. This is the level the modern world obsesses over. Status, achievement, productivity, proving your worth. But here's the problem. If the first 3 levels aren't stable, this level becomes a trap, because you'll keep trying to earn esteem to make up for the safety you don't have. You'll keep trying to achieve your way into feeling secure. You'll keep trying to prove your worth because you don't feel inherently valuable, and no amount of success will ever be enough, because you're using achievement to solve a problem that achievement can't solve. You're trying to fill a hole that exists 3 levels down, and that's why people who have everything still feel empty. That's why success doesn't bring peace. That's why you can check every box and still feel like you're failing. Because the boxes you're checking are at the wrong level. The 5th level, the top, is self-actualization, meaning, purpose, becoming who you're actually meant to be. living in alignment with your deepest values, creating, growing, expressing your full humanity. This is what everyone wants. This is the promised land. But Maslow was very clear about this. You can't live here if the other levels aren't solid. You can visit, you can have moments, you can catch glimpses, but you can't stay because your system won't let you. If you're not safe, if you're not connected, if you're not resting at the base, your brain will pull you back down. Every single time, not because you're weak, but because you're human. And humans are built to survive first and self-actualize second. So when you wonder why you can't find your purpose, why you can't feel inspired, why everything feels meaningless even though you're doing all the right things, this is why. You're trying to live at level 5 while level 1, 2, and 3 are crumbling, and your system is screaming at you to go back down. But you've been taught to ignore that scream, to push through it, to call it resistance, to treat it like a weakness to overcome. And so you keep climbing, keep striving, keep optimizing, and the emptiness keeps growing. Because you're not addressing the actual problem, you're trying to solve a foundation issue with a peak solution. And it will never work, no matter how hard you try, no matter how much you want it to. The human system doesn't negotiate. Now here's where this gets even more difficult, because in order to fix this, in order to actually build a stable life, you have to do something that feels completely wrong in the modern world. You have to stop. You have to go backwards. You have to prioritize things that don't look like progress. You have to sleep more, rest more, eat without guilt, move your body not for optimization but for relief. You have to build financial stability even if it means saying no to opportunities that look impressive. You have to choose relationships that feel safe over relationships that look good. You have to let go of achievements that were only there to prove something. And that feels like failure. It feels like giving up. It feels like you're falling behind while everyone else is moving forward. But here's what's actually happening. Everyone else is collapsing too. They're just collapsing quietly, privately, in ways that don't show up on social media. They're medicating the emptiness, numbing the exhaustion, performing the part of someone who has it together while barely holding on. And you're doing the same thing, you're just finally noticing it. And that noticing, that awareness, is not the problem. It's the beginning of the solution. Because once you see the structure, once you understand that this isn't personal, you can stop fighting yourself. You can stop thinking you need to be fixed. You can stop trying to motivate your way past a missing foundation. And you can start building for real, not for the appearance of success, but for actual stability, not for external validation, but for internal peace, not for a life that looks good, but for a life that feels sustainable. And that shift, that reorientation, changes everything. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not a quick fix. There's no hack for this. But it's real. And it's the only thing that actually works. Because Maslow didn't discover a theory. He discovered how we're built. And you can either fight that structure and suffer, or you can align with it and finally start to feel like yourself again. The choice has always been yours. You just didn't know you were making it. Now you do. If this helped you see something you couldn't see before, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. This kind of reflection doesn't get pushed by algorithms, but it reaches the people who need it when you share it. And sometimes that's enough.